Whew, it's the end of a long ass day. Actually, I'm going to show you my long ass day without showing you names. I know. Do you know what you're thinking? If you don't know what you're thinking, do you know what you're thinking? You're thinking, she sees a lot of patients. You're also thinking you're seeing my cleavage. And you might not be realizing this, but you know what you're thinking? She uses paper charts. Yes, I am a doctor. Yes, my practice, we use paper charts. I could write a book about why I love my paper charts, but I won't, because here's what I'm going to talk about. I've talked about this before. I have to talk about it again. The postpartum time, not postpartum emotions and mood. I would like to talk about our body. I actually just want to talk about the postpartum visit. This is not a comprehensive discussion about the postpartum visit. This is like what I glean, what happens at the postpartum visit and what I feel like we don't do enough of at the postpartum visit. One, at the postpartum visit, let's assume you've delivered vaginally or C-section. I think that it is good if you've had any kind of like traumatic delivery. And if you've had it, you know you've had it. And if you've had it and your doctor knows you've had it, it's nice to kind of like discuss like what happened. I mean, ideally, that's a nice thing to discuss at the delivery itself or like the next day if your doctor gets to see you on rounds, which we don't always, which I know kind of sucks, but like it's just the reality of life. So it's nice to discuss the delivery. So if you have questions, ask your doctor. And if you don't see your doctor because you see someone else in her practice, because that's also the reality, then ask her partner. Hey, do you know what happened at my delivery? And maybe her partner doesn't know, in which case they can confer. That's one thing. So that you know, if you don't know what happened at your delivery and you have questions, ask us, period. 2, we should talk about your vulva and your vagina if you delivered vaginally, or your incision if you had a C-section. So let's just talk about like today. So I saw a lot of postpartums today, which was unusual because I actually have a pretty heavy gynecology schedule typically. But it just happened that a lot of patients I delivered 6 to 7-ish weeks ago came in to see me today. So there was a lot of discussion. It was actually a heavy vaginal delivery postpartum day. We had a lot of discussion about like the diastases, which is where your muscles can separate. We had a lot of discussion about the vulva, which is the opening to your vagina, which is the tube. And a lot of discussion about this, which is actually the crux of what I want to talk about right now, which is at the 6-week visit, I think it's really common to get this discussion like this. Okay, it's 6 weeks. You can have sex. You can exercise. You know, here's your birth control pill. You know, what do you want to use? Do you want to use an IUD? Do you want to use the pill? Do you want to use condoms? You're going to have a vasectomy. The assumption being that y'all are going to have sex. And here's the truth. Who the hell wants to have sex at their 6-week visit? Well, I will tell you. Ironically, of all my postpartum patients, like in the last month, one patient, actually 2. One was like a 20-year-old. God bless her soul. She was 20. She was like excited to have sex again. God bless her. 20. Excited to have sex. The other one was a delightful patient who just is a real unicorn. I love her. If you're watching, you know, I told you, you're a unicorn. I said, go home and you tell that husband that you're a unicorn. She was like really excited. Her vulva did not look as though she had birthed a baby. I know she did because I saw that baby come out. She was not nursing. And here's why that's important. And here's what I'm really talking about. I'm talking in circles, but this is what I want to talk about. When you are nursing, ladies, and I am a proponent of nursing, I think if you like nursing and you want to breastfeed and nurse or pump and give breast milk, in other words, if you want to lactate and give the baby your lactational product, your milk, in whatever form it comes out of your body and you give it to the baby, again, breastfeeding or pumping and giving it through a bottle, in whatever way, I think that's great. And similarly, if you don't want to, I actually think that's great. That might be anathema to people watching because I'm sure that I'm supposed to say to all of you, you should do it because it's the right thing, because of all the nutrients and all that. And I'm not going to say that. And I really mean it nicely when I say, I don't care if you think that I'm bad for not saying it, because I think that women and true feminism means the right to choose, because I don't think there's one right way to feed your child. Fed is best. I think that breast milk is amazing. It has beautiful qualities to it. And yet breastfeeding is fraught with issues. It just is, because we're living in a modern world that is fraught with issues. And it's not as simple as just pull out your breast and feed the baby. If it were that simple, you wouldn't even need a lactation consultant. The minute you need a consultant for something, by definition, it means it's not an easy thing to do. Just sit with that for a second, okay, people? Okay, so let's get back to it. What happens in nature is you birth a child, your hormones are suppressed by lactation. You get what's called lactational amenorrhea. The lactation and the suppression through prolactin, which suppresses the whole hypothalamic pituitary axis, suppresses your hormones so that your ovaries do not ovulate. Therefore, you get amenorrhea, which means lack of your period. And that is why by not getting your period, by not having ovulation, you cannot get pregnant. Does it always work for birth control? No, because you actually ovulate before you get your period. So you might think that you're not going to get pregnant, but you actually popped out an ovulation. So that's an aside. Don't use lactational amenorrhea as a reliable form of birth control unless you're willing to get pregnant. But I bring it up because in the wild, in nature, since we're all excited about nature nowadays, getting back to nature, nature spaced babies about 2 years apart. And how did it do that? Well, in nature, because we didn't use birth control, we used lactational amenorrhea, which meant the hormones suppressed our ovaries. We didn't ovulate. By not ovulating, we weren't going to be able to get pregnant, but guess what else not ovulating did? It made our estrogen levels so low that we not only had no libido, we didn't want to have sex with the caveman, right? The literal caveman, not like the proverbial caveman lying next to you in your bed in the modern world, but the actual caveman. You didn't want to have sex. And besides having low hormones, so no libido, your vulva and your vagina were completely dry and atrophic. That was kind of like a secondary mechanism, it seems, that like stopped you from having sex, right? So you didn't ovulate, you didn't want to have sex emotionally, you didn't want to have sex vaginally, vulvarly, and you didn't have sex. So you didn't get pregnant until you stopped nursing. And then once you stopped nursing, then your hormones would kind of wake up, and then you would start ovulating, and then maybe your libido would come back for the caveman, who, by the way, was not like sleeping next to you every night like they are in the modern caveman world. And then your vulva would become less atrophic and more elastic, and then you would maybe want to have sex again, and then everything would work, and then boom, you get pregnant after the year, and babies were spaced 2 years apart. This is why in nature babies are spaced 2 years apart. Now, what's happened in the modern world? Your 6-week postpartum visit, your doctor dutifully says, okay, now you can have sex and you can exercise. And so what does that do to you as the mom? You're being told you can, so you think you should not only have sex, but that you should want to have sex. And you're like all shades of confused because you're thinking, I don't want to have sex. I just birthed a human either out of my vagina or out of my stomach. And I'm like exhausted. I'm tired. By the way, my vagina feels like it's been ripped to shreds. And I just don't want to. But I'm being told that like I can have sex. And like, I'm so confused. And nobody told me that it's going to hurt. Like my friends haven't told me that it hurts. My mother never told me it's going to hurt. And like, I see people on Instagram acting like they're like excited to have sex with their husbands again. What is going on? So ladies, this is like a huge disservice. We got to talk about this again. We got to talk about this more openly. I thought we all talked about it openly. I thought every day when people are listening to me and everyone else that we're talking about it, but every day in my office, I have super educated women who look at me with true shock when I say to them, oh, you know why your vagina is dry? Because you're nursing. And they're like, wait, really? Or I say, you know, it's not uncommon after a vaginal delivery. You might have some incontinence, either now or like later in life. When you get to menopause, you might pee on yourself a little bit. No, I didn't know that. So mamas who are like in menopause or beyond, tell your girls about this stuff. Not in a scary way. It doesn't have to be like, you know, it happens. That's not what I advocate for. I don't ever want to be that woman who's like, do you know what it's like? Do you know how? We don't have to be that way. We don't ever have to be that way. We would never, I don't ever want to say to my young girl, my friends who are younger, all my friends are younger, by the way, we don't have to be those women who are like crabby and mean. We can all at once be like, by the way, this is life. Life comes with amazing ups and really shitty downs. Birthing is like beautiful and shitty, right? All the stuff. What do I always talk about? Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is like fucking brilliant, right? Because she talks about how it's miserable and magical. Birth is miserable and magical. Vaginal birth, miserable and magical. C-sections, miserable and magical. Breastfeeding, miserable and magical. Motherhood, miserable and magical. Doctoring, miserable and magical. Like it all. Life. So let's talk about both. because you cannot talk about one without the other. You're not going to be effective, because then you're going to either sugarcoat one or you're going to really make the other one, like you're just catastrophizing the other one in a way that's just so dreadful and unpleasant and wrong, right? So ladies, 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 or humans with vaginas and vulvas and uteruses and ovaries and tubes and breasts, or whatever part anatomically you choose to keep. Can we just talk about it more and more openly? And again, not in a scary way. There's a lot of scary things going on out there. There's a lot of stuff that you guys are trying to talk about in a scary way. I have a lot of patients also coming in being like, you know, I heard this story from this friend of a friend of a friend, like, you know, 6 degrees of separation, like, you know, the friend of Ferris Bueller at 31 Flavors who passed out kind of friend. And she said that her IUD perforated. Or like, I heard from another friend whose friend one time had this happen. You know, I always joke, like someone said that to me today about a patient said that about something with an IUD. And I said, that's like saying, you know, one time there was a car that blew up on 95. I'm never going to drive. Like, that's not how we can live. People, this is not the way to live. We should not be scary, but we should not sugarcoat things. They are both such damaging ways to live, all right? So 6-week postpartum mamas, let me tell you, if you're nursing, and when I say nursing, let me just be clear. If you are producing milk and feeding your child with that milk, whether it's from your breast or a bottle, or if you're not, and you're formula feeding, but you had a child and you're tired and you don't want to have sex, it's normal. And if your vagina hurts, normal. So if you decide not to have sex, normal. And if your husband's telling you that everyone else is having sex, I don't know who he's talking to, but they're lying, or they're like a house full of unicorns. You know my little game I like to play, unicorns and liars. And your doctor can prescribe safely vaginal estrogen cream if you need it to like plump up your vagina and make it more elastic, but it takes a while to work. Also, you can go see a pelvic floor physical therapist because they can help parts of your vagina, your vulva, that part that kind of hurts, if you have the time, which is not a lot of time that you have because you're busy taking care of your child, or if you're in America, you're going back to work. Isn't it fun? I know. All right. Anyway, that's just what I want to say. It's a whole jumble of stuff, but it just like got me fired up today about how much we don't talk about this postpartum period of time. And again, the whole like 6 weeks, yay, you're back, woo. It's like crazy. Like I'm having one of those mind days where I'm like, oh my God, women, we literally like, we grow human beings and then we're like still bearing the brunt of all this. Like careers, isn't it amazing? We do all these things for like humanity. I just feel like we're being punked. Okay, I'm gonna go finish my charts.